What's happening in Beijing as we speak may be the single most consequential moment in American foreign policy in decades. A sitting United States president has just landed in the capital of China for the first time in nearly 9 years, accompanied by the most powerful business delegation ever assembled in the history of American diplomacy. And there are signals surrounding this visit, strange, unprecedented, even eerie signals that tell a story far more dramatic than the polished diplomatic headlines would have you believe. This is not just another summit. This is history in the making, and you're about to get a front row seat. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, enjoying yet another glorious day in the Trumpian golden age that you made possible back in November of 2024. So if you want a front row seat on how you continue to change the world in ways you never even imagined, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Also, I study the trends most media won't touch, the rise of a new conservative age, the worldwide blowback against the secular elite. My Patriot Alert newsletter puts it all in context for you each and every day. Just scan the QR code to see the bigger picture. It's easy and it's free. All right, let's dive right in here, gang. President Trump has just arrived in Beijing, China, where they rolled out the red carpet for him, quite literally. He was greeted by Chinese Vice President Han Zhang, a military honor guard, a military band, and around 300 Chinese students waving Chinese and American flags in what Beijing officially called a State Visit Plus welcome. That phrase alone, State Visit Plus, tells you everything. It's not a routine diplomatic handshake. Both superpowers know that what happens in Beijing over the next 36 hours can and will reshape the entire world order. And here's what makes this historic. This is the first visit by a sitting United States president to China in almost 9 years, the last being, ironically, Trump himself back in November 2017 during his first term. Not Obama, not Biden, nobody. 9 years of the world's two most powerful nations negotiating at arm's length. And now President Trump walks back into the Middle Kingdom, this time with all the cards and all the leverage in the world. We'll get to that in a moment because it's absolutely extraordinary. But first, Trump didn't just bring diplomats with him. No. He brought an army of American economic firepower, the likes of which Beijing has never seen walk off a plane. Take a look at this. How's that for a beautiful picture? Wait, if you're listening by way of our 20 million podcast downloads, let me describe what we're seeing here. It's a photo of Trump and Elon Musk sitting together, smiling on Air Force One. The band is back together, gang. And it's not just Elon. Tim Cook of Apple, Jensen Huang of NVIDIA, who, by the way, literally flew to Alaska to catch Air Force One at the last minute after Trump personally called him Tuesday morning and said, you need to get on this plane. We're talking Larry Fink of BlackRock, Steven Schwartzman of Blackstone, David Solomon of Goldman Sachs, Jane Fraser of Citigroup, Kelly Ortberg of Boeing. I mean, we could go on and on and on. Larry Culp of GE Aerospace, Cristiano Amon of Qualcomm, 17 CEOs in total, 17. This isn't just a diplomatic summit. This is America's economic and technological might showing up in person in the heart of China and saying, we're open for business, but we're open for business on our terms. Now, on the Chinese side of things, this official visit has been met with some rather strange signals that suggest that this isn't an ordinary diplomatic event. Now, normally, a state visit of this magnitude is choreographed way in advance, weeks in advance. Schedules are confirmed, itineraries locked, diplomatic prep is completed long before Air Force One ever even leaves the tarmac here in the United States. Apparently, Beijing watchers have noticed not this time. Beijing did not officially announce Trump's visit to their nation until this past Monday. 2 days notice for the most consequential U.S.-China summit in nearly a decade. That suggests that this summit was indeed sensitive, fluid, and contested right up to the very last moment. That behind the scenes, both sides were still wrestling with an agenda that wasn't fully locked down. And we saw that explicitly just yesterday. One day before this summit, China's top economic official, the vice premier in charge of the entire Chinese economy, suddenly rushed to South Korea. And he did so to meet urgently with U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Why the emergency? Because Washington had reportedly sent Beijing a message 10 days prior demanding that the summit agenda include the Iranian crisis in the Strait of Hormuz, exactly the topic Beijing most desperately wanted off the table. Iran had just rejected a U.S. proposal. The strait remains relatively closed, and Washington reportedly suspects China of routing dual-use goods to Tehran through Russian and Central Asian rail corridors. So Beijing's top economic man flies to Seoul, meets with Bessent, then has to race back to Beijing just in time for the summit, frantically trying to manage an agenda that had just blown up in their faces. One Chinese insider put it perfectly. One side talks about the Strait of Hormuz. The other side talks about the Strait of Taiwan. So you've got two straits, two pressure points, two geopolitical ultimatums. In other words, America is leveraging its dominance right now over the Persian Gulf to pressure China and Iran, while China is countering by reminding Washington that any military escalation in the Middle East could free Beijing's hands to move on Taiwan. So each superpower is holding the other's most vital interests hostage. And then the third strange signal is that President Xi is personally escorting Trump to the Temple of Heaven. That's the ancient imperial site where Chinese emperors performed sacred rituals to affirm this cosmic vision known as Tianxia, or their mandate of heaven. So this is obvious. It's not sightseeing. Xi is projecting China as a 5,000-year civilization, not merely a communist state, and he knows Trump responds to grandeur and historical theater. But reportedly, what happens inside is the real bombshell. Xi and Trump are expected to hold a private meeting, one-on-one, no aides, no cabinet officials, possibly only interpreters. And here's the detail that stopped me cold. Xi's own daughter, Harvard-educated, fluent in English, is reportedly expected to serve as his personal interpreter. Now, if true, that means Xi does not fully trust anyone else in his diplomatic apparatus to translate his private words to the President of the United States. That's not the posture of a confident, unchallenged ruler. Something is changing inside those walls, and that is what we're about to find out. While Trump unleashes a political reckoning, there is another crisis poisoning every American in some way, shape, or form, even in the comfort of our own homes. I'm talking about the microplastic epidemic. Now, you may have heard about this, but this is pretty shocking stuff. Check this out.
White ones, we've got clear ones.
Tons of microplastics wash ashore all over the world every day. And now for the first time, scientists in the Netherlands have detected microplastic pollution in human blood.
All the microplastics and nanoplastics we are exposed to, we inhale and we ingest, that actually, there's so much plastic that it can even enter our bloodstream.
The Dutch study on blood samples from healthy adults detected tiny plastic particles in 80% of people.
That's right. There's a microplastic crisis poisoning every American in some way, shape, or form. They're in our food, our water, our meats, our proteins. In fact, according to a recent study, we now ingest 6 times more microplastics than in 1990. It's wreaking havoc on our health and on our organ functions, and unfortunately, no one is immune from this. But there is an amazing solution. There's a unique bacterial strain found only in kimchi that's been found to effectively degrade microplastics. In fact, traditional kimchi is one of the world's most powerful superfoods. But let's be honest, it's messy, It's strong smelling and not exactly easy to eat every single day. So that's why our good friends over at Brightcore created Kimchi One. Now you can get all the benefits of premium fermented kimchi in convenient capsule form. No mess, no taste, no hassle. I've been taking Kimchi One every single day for months now, and gang, I love it. Each capsule delivers over 900 probiotic strains, live enzymes, and antioxidants that help restore balance in your gut. People are seeing improvements in digestion, bloating, regularity, energy, metabolism. Studies show that kimchi even reduces the risk of obesity. Kimchi One is all natural, non-GMO, and 100% made right here in the USA. It's completely dairy-free, gluten-free, soy-free, so just anyone could take it. I personally love it, and I love knowing that I'm supporting my gut and overall health in one simple step. So if you've been looking for a way to boost your immune system and remove microplastic toxins from your body, this is it. You can get 25% off your order by going to the link below, or for an even better deal, give them a call. My friends at Brightcore would love to chat with you, and they're going to give you 50% off plus free shipping. Call them at 888-597-0233. The first 100 callers to order are going to get a free bottle of vitamin D3. Again, you only get that 50% off and free shipping when you give them a call. So once again, that number is 888-597-0233. Here's what's really unfolding right before our eyes in Beijing, and this is coming from the excellent analysis by Zineb Rabua of the Hudson Institute. For years now, China wasn't competing in specific theaters around the world, some trade here or some technology there. China was competing everywhere simultaneously, building energy dependencies around the world, embedding financial architecture globally, acquiring port access from the Atlantic to the South China Sea, and most importantly, sustaining Iran as a key strategic asset at one of the single most important energy choke points on the planet. In July of 2025, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi literally promised Tehran that China would continue to support Iran in safeguarding its national sovereignty and resisting hegemonic and bullying policies from the United States. China was Iran's chief financier, their financial, technological, and diplomatic lifeline. Then came Operation Epic Fury. America deployed the doctrine that has defined Trump's foreign policy: massive military force and economic statecraft applied simultaneously, leaving adversaries literally no window to adapt, reroute, or recover. America degraded Iran's military capacity while simultaneously crushing the financial architecture that was sustaining it. And in doing so, it plowed directly through China's most important strategic asset in the Middle East. And the leverage doesn't stop there. Control of the Strait of Hormuz, through which roughly 20% of the world's oil supply flows, means 40 to 50% of China's oil imports now pass through a choke point that the United States has military dominance over. If China ever moved on Taiwan, the United States doesn't just have a military response, we now have a massive energy response. You simply close the strait, or you keep it closed, and roughly half of China's oil becomes unavailable. That's the kind of leverage that no previous president has walked into Beijing carrying, ever. What's more, China didn't just lose Iran, China also lost Venezuela. China's lost two of its most important strategic allies in the developing world because of Trump. Its proxy network has been irrevocably disrupted. Its Belt and Road corridors are being countered. Its economy has not only been strained by a prolonged property crisis and high unemployment and sluggish domestic demand, but it's been battered by a brutal trade war it did not fully expect to lose. Beijing's export figures may still be high, but the structural vulnerabilities are deep and they are growing. And Xi Jinping, according to multiple analysts and insiders, is at the same time dealing with significant internal pressure. I mean, we talked about this in a number of our other videos. about the military leadership purge that's been happening of late. I mean, there's literally like only one general left in China right now after all the others have suddenly been disappeared. The growing factional opposition against Xi, questions about succession, and what some observers describe as signs of increasing political isolation inside the CCP. Xi hasn't left China. You may not know this. Xi hasn't left China since meeting Trump at the APEC summit in South Korea last October. He just skipped the BRICS summit. That's something that would have been absolutely unthinkable just a year ago. So something is changing behind those walls. There's tremendous political instability inside Beijing. So when Trump sits across from Xi Jinping at the Great Hall of the People on Thursday, and later, if the reports are true, in a private room with no aides, no other diplomats at the Temple of Heaven, he's not arriving as a supplicant asking for favors. Trump is arriving as the leader of a nation that has just demonstrated in the deserts and skies of the Middle East that American power projection is still unmatched anywhere on this earth. He's arriving with an energy chokehold that China cannot ignore. He's arriving with the most powerful business delegation in history, offering Chinese access to American markets, technology, and investment, but only on American terms. And he's arriving with something no intelligence briefing can fully provide: the chance to sit across from President Xi with almost nobody else in the room, look him in the eyes, and personally assess whether the man across that table still fully commands the most powerful authoritarian system on earth. That is not a normal summit. That is a historical reckoning. And here's the bottom line. Trump didn't just arrive in China. He arrived in China with unparalleled leverage. He arrived with strength. He arrived at a moment when every strange signal surrounding this visit, the late announcement, the scrambled agenda, the secretive private meeting, all of it points to one unmistakable conclusion. Beijing needed this summit more than Washington did. And Donald J. Trump knew exactly what he was walking into. No president has ever done this. Not like this, not with this kind of hand. History is indeed in the making. And it's Donald J. Trump calling the shots. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button for breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. Love you guys. God bless.